What's up guys, welcome to AnimeKouhai. If you'd like to help me out, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel.
If the timing is right, you two can meet before the Imperial Army arrives.
My corps prides itself on being the fastest in Tempest. We will make it on time.
Gabble replied confidently to Benimaru. But it wouldn't be that easy. When the time came to evacuate our residence, we intended to run the trains at peak capacity. Even so, moving tens of thousands of people would still take a not insignificant amount of time. Another chink in the plan was the unprecedented speed that the Imperial Army was moving at. When you factored in Legion magic, we could estimate them to be marching at a surprising 80 kilometers per day. The Imperial Army was currently stationed near the border. The distance from their camp to the battlefield was about 1,500 kilometers. At this pace, they would reach the battlefield in about 20 days. The reason they could keep up this pace was because each soldier had undergone some type of surgical augmentation. From what I heard, they could go without eating or drinking for a week, so their top speed was probably even higher still. Gadra said that the tanks could move at about 10 kilometers per hour without refueling. Since they could absorb magicules even at night, the soldiers could rest while the tanks were replenishing their energy. Surely, they would be foolish to exhaust themselves before the war began. Gadra's explanation made sense, so Benimaru and I calculated accordingly.
The Imperial Army might get here faster than expected. So don't let your guard down.
Benimaru warned.
The Imperial Army should deploy their main force here, but as Gabda said, what they are doing now is a tour de force. In other words, a diversion. Their main army is on a beeline towards this very position.
Benimaru took out different colored pieces for the Imperial Army and scattered them in the Great Jura Forest. They wanted us to think that the tank unit was their main force, while keeping the actual main unit separately from them. Since all of the enemy's moves were on full display for me, I honestly just had to sit back and stay sharp.
Even if we may be overwhelmed,
Benimaru continued,
we still have Geld to defend this land. Geld, please call your men back as soon as possible.
Understood. I've already ordered them to return with thought communication. It won't be long before everyone gathers under me.
Benimaru and Geld looked to be on the same wavelength, as they got their points across in a few words. That was Geld for you, reliable as ever. After that, Benimaru turned his eyes back to the map.
Their main force will continue to hide from us. Unfortunately, Rimuru-sama's surveillance magic Argos can't tell us what's happening in the forest. That's where Soe comes into play.
At that, Soe nodded and stood up.
The forest is overgrown with thick trees, making it difficult to monitor from the sky. Even if my subordinates tried hiding throughout the forest, there's too much ground to cover and there is a risk of being discovered. For this operation, I am counting on Moss. He has the ability to release a lot of tiny clones and use them to collect information. As such, we cannot expect them to fight, and either way, Moss has assured me that losing a clone wouldn't set us back. As of now, the eastern part of the Great Jura Forest is under Moss's surveillance. We know that the Imperial Army is divided into platoons and is currently advancing there, so it's up to us to crush them individually.
Soe finished with a cruel smile. He did kinda spook me, to be honest. I was glad he was on our side. Taking each platoon out individually wasn't the problem. The main force behind them was. So, Benimaru's plan was to wait until they came together to a certain extent.
If the Imperial Army's aim is the dungeon, then all we will have to do is lure them to its entrance and take them on from there. If there are still any Imperial troops left on the ground at that point, Geld's second army and my main unit will take care of them. That's all.
The plan was straightforward and easy to understand. But there was one big question still hanging in the air, that was addressing our comparable lack in military power. No one had said anything yet, leaving me wondering what everyone thought about the plan. As I waited, hesitant about whether I should raise the question, the control room suddenly erupted with cheers.
Understood. With Gabble-san backing me up, there's nothing to be worried about. Victory will be ours.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I'm not one to be outdone by Gobta Dono. I will show you how to fight.
I was worried that we wouldn't get an opportunity to prove ourselves. But General Benimaru Dono has, of course, not let us down. Indeed, bestowing us with the greatest honor of protecting our country, no less. We shall unleash all our might.
The three commanders were overjoyed at Benimaru's declaration. It didn't just stop there. The civil servants enthusiastically discussed their opinions amongst themselves, too. Excitement was in the air, and the three demon girls were enjoying a nice chat. But like, the difference in military strength. I too had confidence that we would win this war. Yes, I had a serene outlook on the matter myself, but that didn't necessarily mean I wasn't the least bit anxious. I was slightly put off by the utter lack of worry everyone else exhibited. Even Gapta was full of zeal, not a trace of his earlier unease left. I still had my qualms about leaving this big role in his hands, in spite of having Hakuro as his consultant.
Are there any questions after hearing Benimaru's explanation?
I pushed the question into the room, with no response. Instead, Benimaru said on behalf of everyone.
Don't worry, Rimuru-sama.
Benimaru said with a brisk laugh.
We aren't worried about losing, not from an abundance of temerity, but because we are going all out. A battlefield awaits us with our chance at glory. If that is where we meet our fall, we can only lament our own shortcomings. We will be forced to face our reality, a world where you will eat or be eaten.
I was met with many similar reactions from all monsters alike, including Shuna and the other girls. They didn't fear losing the battle, they feared the idea of running from it, and in some sense, I kind of understood their feelings. Then, I'd make sure to show them my full support.
Testarossa, Ultima, Carrera.
Yes, sir.
The 3 demonesses stood up in unison and bowed to me. Now was the time for me to assign each a mission.
Accompany each corps commander and assist them.
Understood, Rimuru-sama. I will leave CN as our representative on the council. I will personally see this war to the end.
It's finally my time to shine.
Ultima shouted gleefully.
Please leave it to me, Rimuru-sama.
Carrera giggled.
You can count on me, my lord. I will show you every bit of my power.
The 3 of them looked up and replied to my order eagerly. I nodded and introduced them to their respective commanders.
Testarossa, you'll go with Gobta.
Yes, it's my pleasure,
replied Testarossa. On the other hand, Gobta looked doubtful, asking,
Are you sure? A stranger to the battlefield, like this woman here, ain't fit for the first army, you know?
He was treading on some very thin ice. Although pretty hypocritical of me, I had only recently found out that these girls were, in fact, these fiendish creatures known as primordials. Gobta's lack of awareness was painful to watch. You're a dead man if you keep this up, you know? I thought to myself, but kept my mouth shut. It would be more fun to watch this one unfold on its own.
Oh, you're so dependable.
Testarossa mused with a smile, but her eyes gave a chilling glare. I think Testarossa will forgive you if you apologize, Gobta-kun. And so, I would look forward to the day when Gobta found out who Testarossa really was. Gabble, on the other hand, had definitely matured.
I have a lot of weaknesses, so I'm counting on you.
He said as he bowed his head to Ultima. According to what I heard from Diablo and various others, Ultima was the most sadistic of the 3 demon girls. Carrera was the most likely to go on a rampage, but Ultima was the scariest. While she would dutifully follow my orders, she would also seek out loopholes that let her get back at her opponents. That's the type of person she was. Gabble had made the right call here. Ultima seemed to take a liking to him already and replied, Yeah. I'm also counting on you, cutely. Gabble had always warned himself not to get carried away. It seems that it worked and had saved his life. After all, it's important to be mindful of that every day. Geld shook hands with Carrera just fine. Somehow, I felt that they both shared this warrior spirit, which was why I thought that these 2 would go well together. I was proud of the pairings I made. Had I swapped Gobta's and Gabble's partners, things would have been looking grim for our goblin friend already. Feeling quite pleased with the outcome, I gave the 3 pairs words of encouragement. Barely anyone knew who these 3 ladies really were. This was because a gag order was in place on everyone who had been at the meeting when Guy showed up. I didn't want anyone to end up frightened, so I had instructed the 3 ladies to keep it on the down low. I told them to obey the orders from their corps commander and not to reveal their true identities, but I was quite concerned over what may happen if they ever snapped. And to think that I could have gone on in blissful ignorance. Oh well, I shall trust them. Unless I gave them orders, they would be standing by quietly. Anyway, with all that said and done, the 3 pairs were formed. Whatever challenge came their way, I knew they could handle it. I could finally put my mind at ease.
That's all we plan to talk about, but is there anything anyone still wants to add?
The rest would depend on the Empire's reaction, so we'd have to stay flexible. Working with King Gazel was also important, so I had to make some detailed plans with him in advance. However, that was the operation headquarters' job. The corps commanders had their own work cut out for them, so if there were no other pressing matters, we could adjourn the meeting. I was about to call it there, when suddenly a hand shot up. It was Masayuki.
Could you give me a moment?
What is it, Masayuki-kun?
I have a question. The fact that you made me a corps commander aside, you didn't explain what the volunteer corps is supposed to do.
Oh, I forgot about that. He must have quite a few questions. He was still a high schooler, so it made total sense for him to be nervous after being given a corps. Had we been in ancient Japan, it would have been normal for someone his age to lead an army. For a youngster living in peaceful, modern-day Japan though, I could see how it would be overwhelming. It was pretty hard for me too, you know. Before I knew it, I had become a demon lord without a boss to guide me. By contrast, Masayuki was a pretty lucky ducky.
Don't you think so?
So please explain.
Ah, roger that. It was truly a shame I couldn't relay the full extent of my internal monologue. No matter how I said it, it would sound like I was making excuses. It is what it is.
Oh well, I do feel kinda bad about dropping this huge responsibility on your shoulders. However, you're better suited to calm the town's residents than I am.
If it were just the monsters, then we wouldn't have to worry as much if the war started. Morale was high among them, so no one would try to disturb public order. The immigrants were different, though. They might disturb the peace and do not so good things because of their fear and anxiety.
That's why I need you to help alleviate everyone's anxiety, especially now that we're going to war.
I see. If that's what you need, my power will be helpful,
said Masayuki, seemingly convinced.
You're being modest. I, Miles, and everyone else know that you don't want to be partial to one country due to your position as a hero, Masayuki-sama. But please lend us your strength, for the sake of the powerless people,
said Miles, gazing at Masayuki, eyes sparkling. He still had the wrong idea about Masayuki's capabilities, but I wasn't one to rain on his parade. I mean, even Hinata seemed to have the wrong idea about Masayuki. How fearsome you are, Masayuki. I'd make sure to keep a keen eye on how the legend of Masayuki would develop during the war.
You're right,
Masayuki replied begrudgingly. Looking at his expression, I could tell that he was already sick and tired of it. I felt sorry for him, but I wanted him to do his best here.
Then, I guess I will try to maintain public order with the volunteer corps that you've entrusted me with.
Please. I figure you already know about this, but thanks to Ramirez, I think the damage to the town will be minimal. When the war begins, the plan for the urban area on the ground is to isolate it within the labyrinth.
Executives and other relevant parties should have already been in the know. There were probably some rumors floating about from the people who were late to the evacuation drill, since I hadn't cracked down on them. The idea being that it would help alleviate some anxiety.
While my power is amazing, it's all thanks to Mentor.
Yep, this great feat was achieved by lending Ramirez my super powerful magicules. You could call it a triumph of friendship.
That's it for this video, guys. Thank you for always watching my videos and supporting my channel. A big thanks to the AnimeKouhai patrons who made this video possible. Jared Bressler, Sanketh Chelu, Minotaur, Chadvota, I Like Anime, Ray Perez, Chris Guzman, Havox, Speed Saber, James Waters, Yon Junam, Arijit Das, Quilly Buckner, Donald Williams, Moab A, Day of Light, Diasili, John M, John Charles, Godman Gaming, Akon Engok, Markithian Tidwell, Trevor Federkins, Andre L. Hamilton, Adrian, Sean Sinclair, Kumo, Tibush, Chang, John L, Fraser Guzman, James, Tojam, Edgar Fuentes, JV, Dirty Old Hobo, Thomas, Edmund, Jay, Christ, Joshua Cousins, Jose Hernandez, Vethelny, Lunel Scarlett, Ryan, Mika Pekarinen, Christian Deshazer, Cal Robs, Professor DJ, Divine C. Harris, Kasage 1999, Bass Bulin, Panda Cats, Aaron Alarcon, DeAndre Nance, Oz Hunter, Monty Boy 98, D-Man, Divinay, Wise Viking, Ruben, Maria Vasquez Rodriguez, Luis Caro, Soma Kazuya, Peter Ambak Helsem, Pedro Robles, Ono Morman, Michael Rogers, Jordan, Kemal Ebanks, Chris Duncan Jr., Isaac, Shadow Wolf 660, Koala King 93, Devon, Tyree Ezel, Paul DeGrassi, RN Bart, Little 95, Coyote De Peza, Enrique Soto, Omar, J Napthic, TYI, This Is Not My Username, Zelda Kid 205, Mizzle Bizzle. Thank you so much for helping out. I'll see you guys in the next video.